Yeah, I mean, so let's do this last question here.
Okay, sure.
From Darren Flowers, shout out for the super chat. I hear a lot of Trae Young to the Spurs rumors, a guard that's 6 foot that cannot defend, that's on a massive contract, an amount of resources you would have to give up. Can you explain to me how that's a good idea? Bryce, do you want to take this or should I to start?
Well, I was just going to say, like, he brings up some interesting points here. The contract is over 40 million for the next 3 years. I think the one thing that, like, where you bring up the cannot defend, I think that the idea is that Wemby protects that. And so that's why you can get away with a 6-foot guard that cannot defend, but has the star power that Trae Young has from the guard position. And again, one thing I think that is often underappreciated with Trae Young is what he is as a passer. So yes, the scoring, all of that stuff, but this guy getting Wemby the ball in the spots, those two running pick and roll, pick and pop, all of the different things you can do with them is very intriguing. I think Darren, and again, shout out, thank you. He always comes through with some of these really cool questions. I can understand the hesitation. Do you want to commit that much money long term at this stage if you're the Spurs? I can understand that conversation. That is the big thing for me. I don't think the defense scares me as much because, again, we just talked about how Victor can make up for a lot of that. And I think offensively, it just makes a whole lot of sense.
So with this fit, I actually kind of love it. So like from the asset perspective that you'd have to give up, that's the thing.
Yeah, that was the other part. I skipped over that. Sorry.
Me a little bit hesitant on it. But in terms of fit, like Trae is so good at drawing defenders away from his big in ball screen situations. He would just feed Victor lobs. Like Trae Young made John Collins like a 20-10 guy, right? Victor is enormous and is unbelievably impressive as a lob catcher and finisher at the rim when he wants to be. And as he gets stronger and like gets stronger through his legs, he's going to be a really difficult problem to solve, I think, in those situations. So offensively, what we kind of talked about earlier is like, if I was building a team around Trae, I would want 4 shooters or around Victor. I'm sorry, not around Trae.
Yeah.
I would want 4 shooters and I would want like 2 real like playmakers. And I think that you can get away with somebody who has like the really small size, like Trae with Victor. You would just need Trae to like commit to, you just have to give effort getting around screens. Because again, with Victor, the thing is, I think that Trae's biggest issue a lot of the time is actually in recovery as much as anything in ball screens. Trae, a lot of the time, like that's from like giving up, but a lot of the time, like it's just because he doesn't have like real physical tools to be able to get back and recover. Like he's not overly quick. He's not overly long, right? If he is just willing to like try and close the angle and like get back and like be on the guy's like back in his hip, that closes the angle because Victor's length, as we showed in that clip earlier, automatically closes angles in like a real substantial way where he's in the pocket passing gap. He's in the, like, he's obviously going to block off the lobs and he's like there ready to contest the ball handler at all times because he's so long. Then you throw in what he's going to bring offensively to San Antonio. Like he's an offense unto himself. He's an unbelievable offensive player. Nobody should ever doubt Trae Young's incredible offensive gifts. If you put Trae next to Wemby and put 3 shooters around them, it's not like their defense can be worse right now than what it is, right? Like when Wemby is on the court, they have like a 115 defensive rating, something like that. That would be essentially and I pull it up, like 13th best defense in the league, right? If you can be a team that has like the best offense in the league and like the 13th best defense in the league or something, you're probably contending for a title at the end of the day. So I like the idea depending on the price tag. It just would depend on the price tag.
Yeah. And as Basketball Genesis brings up, Trae Young is only 25 years old. So, you're not even like, you're even talking about the timeline still relatively matching between those guys. So again, I think it comes down to that final thing. And Darren brought it up to his credit. And the question is, what is the haul? What do you have to give up? How many draft picks and all of that? And then I always like to have the context as well, because I don't know teams like cap sheets in and out off the top of my head. How can you build around it? Because if you're going to go get Trae Young, you want to start truly competing and start building. So what are the other means to putting that roster that makes sense? You don't want to waste 2 years of Trae and Wemby because you don't have the 3-and-D 2, 3, and 4 in the starting lineup. You don't have the floor spacing around them, or you don't have enough depth to really compete. I'm not saying you're going to go compete for a championship in year one, but if this happened this offseason, I think Victor in year 2, Trae at this point in his career, you're going to want to really win some games and, get into the playoffs with that roster. So you got to figure out, okay, how do we build it out around them? Do we have the resources, the means to do that right away as well?
Yeah, and that'd be a little bit trickier, right? So, you'd probably have to use Keldon Johnson's salary for matching. And then, you have the Zach Collins deal. You have Trey Jones has 1 more year left on his deal, although he might be useful to keep. The real problem with this idea to me almost is having Devin Vassell on that like enormous extension, kind of. Like, you'd really have to believe that Vassell is like a guy, I think. And I don't mind the deal, to be clear, but like, if you're going to get your next star, it's gonna be a problem to have Victor, and then you have Trae on like 39 million, whatever the number is, and then you have Vassell on 30 million. Actually, no. Now I'm looking at it, his deal actually declines.
Okay.
It goes from 29 the first year to 27 to 27 to 24. It looks like it's a little bit more interesting, but Devin, you need to hope that somebody values Devin. You'd need to use Keldon as the salary match though. Like, you can't, you'd have to like hope that Atlanta values Keldon Johnson.
Yeah. And I say, like, that's where I like these ideas in theory whenever they get brought up. And then my mind always goes to, how do you build it out after that? And so that would be the piece. I think that would be maybe the biggest piece for me is, how do you build it out? You have Vic, you have Trae. Great start. Awesome. Like, even money wise, it's fine because Vic's not getting the rookie extension for, however long, and that's not kicking in. So you can spend some major money in other areas. But how do you get there? How do you get those players into San Antonio via trade, free agency?